Good morning and welcome to the album judging today at the 2019 AIPP Australian Professional Photography Awards. This category is sponsored by Memento Pro. Memento Pro, one of our top sponsors within the AIPP. And Memento Pro has lots of products, lots of new products to share with you. They're a 100% Australian-owned company and are Sydney-based. You can certainly check their products online and order online. Libby Jeffrey from Memento Pro has told me some of the things that she'd like to promote today. Portrait format flush mat albums. An additional 4 more linen covers are now available. Pick time partnership and an InDesign plugin. So thanks, Libby, for your continued support of the AIPP. And there are some offers that you've got here that I'll read out at the end of the judging. I'd like to welcome our 5 judges today. Steve Scalone from Victoria, Hilary Woodhoff from the ACT, Luke Simon from South Australia, Catherine Williams all the way from New Zealand, and Nathan Madigan, who's probably come as far from Western Australia. I don't know what's closest, New Zealand or Western Australia? Oh, is it? And you're proud of that. I'm panel chair, Jeff Comfort. Sir Lewis is helping me as our scribe, and Jan Ramsey is our print handler for today. So let's go to the first album that we've got presented today. This album that Jan's about to display and walk us through scored a majority 79. So for those that are listening to this broadcast, the actual score was, I think, 80.6, but 3 judges scored it in the 70s, so it has a majority 79. No. But we can talk. Just turn me off. Thanks, judges. So the announced score is 79. Catherine has indicated that she'd like to challenge. Catherine, you sit on 86 with your score there, and the scoring range goes down to 76. There's another challenger near you at 84. So if you'd like to initiate that challenge and start the discussion, that would be great. Thanks. And I'd encourage all judges to make some comments about these albums, because we do go through them for quite some time with Jan displaying. There's ample time to do that, and I think these are big productions for photographers, so it's good for them to get some feedback on it. Thanks, Catherine.
Okay, so the word encapsulation is part of the story that's presented at the start of the wording at the start of this, and right from as you touch the book, you really sense encapsulation. It's a modern take on this, but you can imagine this being the sort of duality of the traditional and the leather and the style with the modern take of the couple. They use the words independence in this, and this really comes through quite strong in the photographs. We feel a real sense of independence in this couple and their quirky and playful nature. The fibrous paper that we see in the ends is working really well. The tonality through the skin and the hair and the browns that we're bringing in tie in really beautifully with the cover. The images are modern, and it's beautiful to this this particular layout here was quite striking. The use of words is very effective in this compositionally. Once again, we're seeing that real feel of independence in this. Throughout the quotes that are used, they are very carefully chosen to pair in telling us more about the couple. We're getting a sense of joy throughout. The treatment on the photos is consistent in that the way that it all ties through. We're getting that sort of softness through the colour tones. The inclusion of the signatures. Just think in terms of a time capsule, something like a signature is such a beautiful piece to add to a time capsule. And then finished off with the love letters at the end. It really does have the essence of a timeless piece.
Thanks for those comments, Catherine. Hilary, I'd like you to comment on this particular album, please, album 1 that we're looking at here. And you scored this at 76. Thanks.
Thanks, Catherine. I really love the concept. Absolutely adore the concept, the story, the history. I felt that it looked like a notebook, and that's what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be printed onto finer paper, and I wanted it to be more tactile. I wanted the actual photographs of the letters to be better photographed. I felt that I liked and enjoyed all the text throughout the actual book, and I think it's important to have that text in. I enjoyed the poems. I didn't like the font or the size of the font. I didn't like the boldness of it. I just felt that it needed to be... The actual first bit, the introduction, I think actually needed to be handwritten as well. I liked the use of the actual signatures, but it would have been... and actually, thanks... this is not particularly well photographed, and so I just think that if the letters were lit better to be photographed a bit better, I think that would have added to it. The very first, and this one, and a couple of the other letters, you could actually see the tones in the actual paper that the letters were written on, whereas this you couldn't. You can see little bits of folds. So I did actually struggle with that. I love, this is just so gorgeous. I absolutely loved it. But I needed it to be more personal in that regard, to actually, so I could actually almost feel the letters. I think the use of the lay flat is good for the actual photos. But not so. But doesn't, as I said, I wanted it to feel more like a notebook. I felt that he was quite restrained in the images. Obviously, there's a bit of yin and yang with him and her. She seemed quite sort of gregarious, but he seemed quite restrained. And I felt I wanted the photographer to actually get to him a bit more, to be a bit more interactive with her in the images, to really reflect their love for each other. So that's why I gave it 76.
Thanks for those comments, Hilary. I'd like Nathan, who scored this at 78, which is in the high professional practice range.
Yeah,
for some
thank
comments,
you.
please, Nathan.
It's very interesting being able to take notes. First, suddenly everyone has a lot to say and it's very articulate. I wanted to jump in before Steve's to give a chance for another high score to respond to these things, because this is a beautiful album from the smell to the opening. It promises so much, and it delivers in the paper choice and in all the little external details. But my qualm is really just the content. And look, the font is okay in my opinion, because it's simple and they want us to be able to read easily, but there's a lot of disconnection because it's in French, which is fine. Like others will appreciate all of those words, but for us, we're held back. The palette is beautiful, the splashes of the jumper and the colour, but I guess what I got stuck with is just the technicals. I mean, I do this a lot, and to photograph a piece of paper with writing, you cannot crop some of the words off on the edge. And there are words cropped off there, and that just says we've scanned or photographed and then cropped too much. And we're reading these words, and if we're meant to, then we need to see the whole thing. So that's just a simple technical of a beautiful product that just needs to be finished, I guess. And then the photography, if we've got a profile of our man and then the girl looking directly at the camera, we're going to need the girl's eyes in focus for us, not his nose or his ear, because she's engaging with us and we're drawn to these eyes that just aren't in focus, and that doesn't work. I'm seeing a repetition of location and repetition of pose. It's about 3 or 4 poses the whole way through, so I'm not really learning too much new about these guys. A lot of the printing is a little bit muddy. Some of the quotes, they're capitals, and other quotes are all lowercase, so really beautiful concept, but let's get a consistency in those words as well. Catherine, I love what you saw about that Lemony Snicket quote. Beautiful and really contemporary feet at the top, but the parts of the feet that we can see is just kind of really blown out. We don't get enough story. If we had a bit more legs, like we've seen those contemporary shots and they can be really great. So it's a great concept, and this photographer's put so much heart into it, and this couple should adore this as a really beautiful memory. But I'm just picking the little things in there that would potentially push it a lot higher, and I feel like in order to award it, we do need to tick off those little boxes, and that's all I have to say. So I'd love you guys to keep talking it up, but I'm stuck just on the little technicals around that.
Thanks for those comments, Nathan. I'll just go to Steve before I go to you, Luke. So, Steve, you're sitting on 84, a silver award. Let's have your comments, please.
So I love this process because I actually agree with every single one of you. And I'll explain why I scored it the way I did. I am awarding the photographer for the actual concept. Now, there are perhaps better choices in font that he or she could have made. There are better scanning options, and perhaps definitely the camera craft needed improvement. I did take all of that into account. What I did love or enjoy most about the whole concept was encapsulation. That whole heirloom being created, that wonderful story that has happened. I do feel the reason why I didn't go higher is perhaps because of the content, because of the technicalities portrayed within the photographs, and the whole session did need a strong edit, I feel, in order to elevate that. So perhaps not approaching it with as many images, especially from the same location and that type of thing, I feel would have made this piece a lot stronger. But it's the concept that I actually want you all to kind of have a think about. I think it is essentially an heirloom. If you can imagine this in 20 years' time, 30 years' time, those love letters that were opened on their wedding day have now gone a little bit tea-stained, and it's a really wonderful sentiment. So I'm applauding for the concept.
Thanks for those comments, Steve. Luke, you scored this at 78. Once again, high professional practice. Could you make some comments, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much everyone has covered everything I had written down here in terms of the lovely, gorgeous, tactile album, and the presentation is just beautiful. I was a bit disturbed, I guess, by that initial double-page spread where the spine is going straight through her face, through her eye, and the lack of a point of focus in the image, and that kind of held me back. But there was a lovely lightness and playfulness to many of the portraits. I did feel that there was a bit much repetition in terms of the quantity of images from each location. Lovely print quality, and the way that some of them had been laid out in terms of giving some of the images some space to breathe, I thought was really well handled. A tad less content image-wise would have helped to strengthen it, I thought, but beautifully, thoughtfully presented and packaged. I thought that was great, and that pretty well covered everything for me, and that's sort of why I set it in that high professional practice standard. But I'm certainly listening to everyone's comments for sure.
Thanks for those comments, Luke. Catherine, can we go back to you now? You initiated the challenge. You have a right of reply. So if we could go through that, that would be great. Thanks.
So the encapsulation, our relationship has never been traditionally romantic, and that's exactly what the essence of this album is. It's 31 minutes, so in terms of repetition of the location itself and not having variety, it's all shot in a very tight space of time. And even just the quirky, you really get an essence of the quirkiness of the couple. The fact that, this is from 6:01 to 6:32, we see quirk throughout this, and and he hates consumerism, and I get the feeling that this was all carried through in this kind of, graffiti-ridden location. The narrative is that you are seeing a very strong sense of who these people are. This is not a production line. This is someone who's listened very carefully to who their clients are and captured this in their photographs. The styling has a quirky nature, which is tying it through with the imagery. There was a couple of things that Nathan raised, which that are a bit of, a little bit of an irk, but I would ask you to forgive those and perhaps consider that is missing a capital letter enough to mark it down very significantly. The inclusion of not just the letters, but the drawings, the little drawings on the envelopes, it is giving us a lot more about their story. That's telling us so much, and you really do get the impression that over time this is going to say so much about them, and it all comes together really effectively. In terms of that it's in French, this is a personal story. This is for them. That is the whole idea of an album. An album is for the people that are in it, and that's the heirloom. Nobody else needs to understand those words.
Thanks, Catherine. Judges, I'd ask you to rescore. I'll just remind you that it currently sits on a majority 79. Catherine, your score of 86 stays there. And other judges, if you could rescore, that would be great. Thanks. So after the rescoring, the new scores are now 82, Catherine's original score of 86, 82 again, 79 and 85. It's an 83, a silver award. Thank you, judges. So judges, there's another two to do. When if there's a challenge there, can you please indicate?
Sorry.
No.
We weren't sure which way we were all talking about.
No, it's really easy with an iPad because you guys have to think for yourselves.
We don't know the scores, so it's good.
Yeah. Yes, you do, because you know my announced score and you know your score.
Which you're not meant to.
Which is all you should know in the print.
That is true. All right, we'll take it.
It doesn't work that way.
Stay free.
Stay free.
Thank you, judges, for that comment and discussion on print on album number 1. We'll move on to album number 2, and the score for this particular album is 82, a silver award. So congratulations to the photographer for that. Nathan's indicated that he'd like to challenge this. He's sitting on 88, a silver distinction. Nathan, you're working with 81, 83, 78 and 78. So let's hear your comments, please.
Yeah, this is a fun album. So we're clearly looking at a wedding album, and what our risk is with wedding prints is perfection and clinical perfection, and sharpness and quality and big things on the wall. And there's a lot of that in here, but the beauty of an album is it's a story from start to finish. And when we're reading a story, we want to feel something. And I'll throw it to you guys to see if you did feel it as well. But for me, I really felt the energy and the emotion, and I enjoyed this couple. There was a joy of this day about it. It opens with fun. It opens with one splash of a hair in a dress, which is a really interesting. Okay, it opens with a dress. That's the inside cover. We'll get to that in a second. But just before those guys, sorry, since you're flipping, can we go back to just that first page, just over one? So it opens with that, which is a really nice, soft beginning that says, here we are, we're going to get ready for this thing. I'm dressed up. I've got the hair, I've got the dress. That's a wonderful start. And then it flips to fun. And it goes from fun to fun to fun. And every shot of the getting ready, every shot of the ceremony, every shot going forward is just, there's so much energy. And I really feel like we're learning a lot about this couple. And it's authentic to them. I do want to point out that the handmade cover makes it really personal, makes it really styled for them. I like that it matches the dress texture on the inside cover. You'll notice as an overarching story theme that dress features all the way through as a character in its own right, and it closes with a dress on the inside cover too, which is quite a nice little touch. There's a lot of scene setting as well. The photographer has put time into the story. They've set up the scene before they really do the characters and do the story and do any kind of conflict and resolution. It's part of it. It works really well. There's a couple of subtle joys when you see that flip, that little black and white flip of the getting ready scene. There, next page, I think. That one. It's subtle enough to not, be checking for, how did they do it? It works. It's not the same thing, but it works. And it just emphasizes joy all the way through. So I know we've got notes, so we just keep on talking. I'll just say one more. There's some grainy shots during the reception that work because of energy. And the only thing that kept me out of gold, pretty much, was that magenta colour cast, which hopefully everyone else has noticed as well. They've kind of gone, oh, it's a little bit red in the print, and the photographer needs to hear that as well. So not gold for that, but gosh, it works with the tapestries in the background. It works with the intricacies of the dress, and so it's kind of forgivable. I'll keep it out of gold for that because it still rolls. It's still consistent. So anyway, that's my opening talk. I'm on 88. I thought this was a really exceptional, true, authentic story of emotion.
Thanks, Nathan, for those comments. I'd just like to go to the other end of the scoring scale. And Luke, you're on 78. Could we have some comments from you? You've scored it once again in high professional practice.
Yeah, certainly take on board a lot of that. And my first notes were here about that lovely, unique use of the dress fabric on the cover. I thought that was a great touch. I was really excited when I started this album, and the colour reproduction, I thought, wow, this is looking good. And then it dropped off significantly for me. It really went from the first few pages being really consistent to becoming quite jarring in terms of the yellows in the skin tones. And so that kind of disturbed me a little bit. The black and whites throughout I thought were really strong. And the design, gorgeous, really enjoyed it. What else have I written here? Consistent strength in compositions. I thought there were some fantastically, beautifully curated images and image choices, and some great, strong portraits and perspectives and points of view. But yeah, that jumpy jarring of the colour correction really sort of got to me. And I did love the opening and the closing with the dress, as was mentioned as well. So I guess that's kind of what.
Just wait for a minute till
Yep.
this is finished. So thanks. We're back on air now.
No
if you're
worries.
happy to keep going with your comments, Luke, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
just
Thank
a couple of quick ones. I completely agree. Beautiful, playful, fun story of this couple's wedding day, though. I think it's fantastic professional practice. But yeah, I just kind of held it back just for those inconsistencies. But I'm certainly listening to what everyone else has to say, for sure.
Thanks, Luke. Steve, I'd like you to make some comments now. You're sitting on 83, recognising it as a silver award here.
Yeah, I essentially are sitting directly in between the two of you, and I agree with yet again both viewpoints. When looking at a large body of work like this, obviously a wedding day, and encapsulate it into a very chronological way with a large body of work, perhaps there is inconsistencies. I will agree that the album cover is a beautiful touch, not necessarily completely original, but I think it yet again starts to turn into that wonderful personal heirloom that the clients would love. The actual quality of the imagery and even the post-production techniques started very strong at the beginning, with very well conceived compositional elements, lighting and that type of thing, right up until the ceremony, and then it fell away quite quickly. When the traditional location shots started to present themselves, perhaps they were rushed for time, or there could have been better lighting choices, and of course then that suffered in terms of the magenta casts that were made comments on, and the yellow tinges and things like that. Excuse me. So I have taken that all into account and still kind of gave it a good solid silver, purely because of those vastly huge variables that do happen within a wedding day. I do feel that this large body of work does encapsulate overall a really strong piece, at least from a silver award standpoint.
Thanks, Steve. Catherine, if you'd like to make some comments. Once again, you scored this 78, representing high professional practice.
I sit more with where Luke's comments lie. Just the other things to add. The creamy sort of black and whites were really nicely handled, and it felt like a shame that the colour wasn't as handled as well as the black and whites. And there's some inconsistencies on some of the pages within one shot to the next with the reds. Where light has been purposely placed, it felt like a lack of control. There's photos with the brides down the hallway with the light next to her. It doesn't feel that the placement of the light on her has been well controlled. There's a photograph against a wall where there's quite a bright chunk of light over his face. Once again, that shooting with the, utilising that bright sunlight, shooting with that is absolutely fine, but it didn't feel like it had been controlled enough to be successful, as opposed to the one on the left here, which has been beautifully controlled. So I just needed to see some more consistent control in the way that light was being handled. I also fell in love with the bride, and I felt a little bit like her energy and vibrancy absolutely 100% came through, but I didn't fall in love with the photography as much as I fell in love with the bride. The cover is exquisite and very successful. The layout is generally central in both top and bottom, and there's a couple of layouts where the choice has been to anchor them to the bottom. I actually felt that was a little bit disjointed to the general layout being centrally placed within the overall flow.
Thank you, Catherine. Hilary, would you like to make some comments, please, or are you happy with what's been said already? Okay, thanks for that. Nathan, you've scored this at 88 and initiated the challenge. Your right of reply to finish off the discussion, please.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. And such a great amount of information for the photographer to take on with this work and with more work. And look, I won't disagree with any of it because it's all valid from the highs to the lows of this beautiful story. And I can see the colour shifting as the day progresses as well. There's in a full wedding range, which this isn't just the pretty moments, this is all the way through. We've really got we've got challenging light all the way down to midnight sparklers, and so there's certain choices that the photographer has made. Midday sun is challenging, and we can see that, and then we see a choice of a film tone over there to kind of pull it back a few decades. It's like kind of a Polaroid-y kind of feel, and that's probably the best choice for midday sun hugs, and we see that, and it runs beautifully consistent. Instead of those, if we did a true colour in that, it would be jarring. And so they've softened that. They've embraced the splashes of colour through. That's a difficult scene right there, highs and lows, and they've just kind of made it flow as a consistent, if not perfect, story. So I enjoy that. I'm not forgiving any of it. I think the heavy blacks are the heaviest on the noir kind of images where it works. This particular image, I love that we're just getting the pages that I like. This is not a portrait of a bride or a groom. This is that third and fourth character, which is hair and dress. And in a great story, we're going to open with setting. We're going to set the scene for each set of images. And this photographer does that, sets a wide scene, shows us where we are, and then starts to define the characters. And we don't just have a bride and groom. We have a bridal party, so honoured with some of these shots. We're in love with the styles of the bridal party as well. The noir shots of the groomsmen with glasses really celebrate and honour that part of the team, like those shots. And then we've got these characters of the dress, the hair, the hands, the shoes, and there's a lot of honour to all these little pieces. So I love a lot of what you said. I'm going to wrap it up, but what we're seeing here is we're not seeing the shooting of a wedding so much as the shooting of love and friendships. And in that regard, it is a beautiful capture of that energy. And so that's why I'm right up there high, because I can feel it and we're falling in love with these strangers.
Thank you, Nathan. Judges, could you rescore, please? I just remind you that the original score was 82, a silver award. Nathan, you're on 88. Your score will stay there. Thank you, judges. Thank you for the discussion. The print score stays at 82, but it's a great discussion of great value to of great value to the photographer and everybody else who's listening. So thanks for those comments. We're going to move on to our final album judging today, and I'll just remind you that we're judging the Australian Album of the Year, sponsored by Memento Pro. So this particular wedding album that we've got here has scored 84 by majority. Thank you. So 84 by majority means that the score was in the silver distinction range, but three judges scored it below 85, so it's an 84 majority. Hillary's indicated she wants to challenge. In this case, Hillary has scored 95, a gold distinction award. So it's an automatic challenge. Each judge will be able to comment, and there's no right of reply. So the other scores we're working with are 283s, an 88 and an 82. So judges, please indicate to me when you'd like to talk, but I'll start off with Hillary at 95.
Yes, I looked at this several times. I gave it 9 to 5. I adore it. I think the attention to detail, the sense of place, history, culture, family, community was very strong. It really felt like a love story. Greek, I'm presuming. And there was such detail in the details, the little embossed bits and pieces on the outside of the book, but also, being singular then as a double. I think that the outfits that they're wearing in this particular sort of, I guess, engagement shoot were perfect, really reflected their culture and the couple themselves. I think that the use of the flora in a couple of the images, I think it possibly the next image coming up, I think. Oh no, maybe the next one. The use of light was exquisite. I felt that there was an element of sort of chiaroscuro in the use of that by the photographer. So I think that was really effective. I felt, at first I wasn't sure about the fact that some of the images were quite sort of sombre, but I think, it's obviously means so much to them to get married where they're actually getting married, back within the arms of their tradition and their family and their culture. So I sort of reflected that beautifully. These next couple, there's this page and also another couple of pages further on where it's all black, and it sort of made me think like it was a like a wet plate colloidal sort of thing here. And it was velvety and beautiful, and I really loved these 2 pages. I think that the photographer's use of framing, when we go to the wedding thing, so if we just turn it over, yep. Okay, so when I thought that the use of composition and the use of framing in the individual photos when there are other people in the shots was really interesting. So it actually, even though that their families and their extended families and they are all there, you sort of only really get I think you've just missed a page there actually. If you just go back a bit, get a sense of here. Like you can see the nonna and whatever in the background there. So that it's not in your face, but you can really, these are the vine leaves in front of them. You really get a sense of place here, and I thought that was wonderfully presented by the photographer. Sorry, if you just keep going a little bit. I love the use of the actual rings and the fauna in the first couple of pages of the wedding album as well. I thought that was effective to tie it in with the actual engagement shoot. I like the fact that it's flipped over also. Love these 2 pages. Oh my God, that just that so important to have that connection to family, which possibly are still living in that area, and possibly the bride and groom are possibly, I'm assuming a lot of things here, just hang on one sec, are living in Australia. Children are very important, and this is actually seen throughout the whole wedding, where the children are focused on, and it's starting of a new family, and I think it's obviously important to the couple having children. It's important to their families that they're going to be having children, and what have you. So this has given it a beautiful. The photographer has chosen in unique, beautiful, candid, documentary ways to show that family is really important. I gave it 95, and I really, really would love you to come and join me in gold.
Thanks, Hilary, for those comments. Steve, I'd ask you to comment. You've scored this as 88, a silver distinction.
Yes, I'm almost there with you, and I adore this album. It really did excite me. There is a sense that the photographer is completely comfortable and directly within their element in the whole process. It feels like each of the images has come naturally to them. And even the use of the storytelling, the use of composition, this wonderful, delicate, yet very deliberate composition, just this page itself, really defines that photographer's voice. And of course, the bride and groom get to be part of that. The reason I didn't go higher, and I'm still contemplating going into a gold range, is there was some, it really jarred me and took me out of this beautiful fantasy. I'll take the wind out of anybody's sails if they've also noticed it too. It is forgivable. Here it is here. The photographer had flipped the image. Perhaps? No? Okay, no. Well, please explain to me why this has actually been a mirrored image. There is also one other mirrored image with a sign, perhaps 2 or 3 places before. Okay, so by the sounds of it, I'm completely wrong, which is fabulous. So please correct me. This one here, to me, it did take me out of that reality, and obviously it's because of my lack of understanding on whatever you're about to tell me, perhaps. I did try to piece it with the wonderful innovation that was actually being shown with the reversed design as well. So I actually saw the wedding day first, and then halfway through the book discovered that the rest of the images were upside down. And then I got excited again to discover a whole new story that now reacted as a flashback. And that's what really intrigued me. That's what really, that's the part that I enjoyed the most, actually discovering the flashback. So I didn't necessarily do it as a chronological order, which made me question why the writing was not displayed correctly on the spine, but then later that actually made complete sense. So when I looked at it first, the writing was typically upside down on the actual spine if you were to place a book into a bookshelf. And I was kind of perplexed as to why that is. Now I know completely why. Just having a look at the content and the photography, this photographer is going throughout the day in a very cinematic way, and all the content has been handled beautifully. I really do feel that there is a completely strong storytelling, emotive journey that he has taken us on, or she. And of course then once you do turn that round into the flashback or the beginning of the actual engagement shoot, I think that is, yeah, it's a really beautifully pieced together album.
Thank you, Steve. Luke, I'll ask you to comment, please. Luke, you awarded this silver at 83.
Yeah, and I was potentially a little bit harsh on this. I think just to address that first thing, Steve, I thought the same thing, and then when I actually read the Bible that the priest was reading from, it's all in reverse. And so I have a feeling that it's something to do with this culture, because it's more than once. It's all in reverse, yeah. So I did pick up the same thing and went, oh my gosh, how could they do that? What a big error. But then, you know, on closer reflection, yeah. So stunning narrative of this couple's wedding day, and a beautiful insight into another culture that I'm certainly not familiar with and haven't had the opportunity to explore in terms of wedding photography. But I think it's beautifully done. There were just a few images that let me down in terms of printing. There was a black and white of the dress, was it of the dress or of the bride near the start, that some of the highlights were just not well controlled, and I thought they could have been controlled better. And then when we got to this part of the day, I felt that there was a little bit of much repetition in a couple of the portraits. I thought that maybe on their own they would have stood stronger, just on, like, as in singularly, without having that repetition. What else did I have to say? I did love and enjoy that beautiful connection with family, and the points of view that were given throughout in terms of camera angles that really helped bring us into the story of those children and some of those scenes, like with the preparations and things. Great display of technique and else and camera use. I think you used the word camera craft, Steve. I thought that was a really good choice of words. What else have I got to say? Listen, they were the main things. I'm definitely listening. I think I was probably a little bit harsh on my score, and I'd love to hear what other people have got to say and hear more.
Thanks, Luke. Can you pass the microphone to Catherine? Catherine scored at silver 83 as well. So your comments, Catherine. Thanks.
Thank you for your bringing up a lot of amazing points, and the more I see it, the more I fall in love with it. The quality of the documentary captures are particularly impressive in this, and there are actually a lot of quite quiet moments, and that is maybe why it's easy to miss their strength. The flow was holding me back a little bit in terms of where we've got the black and the white. Like it was sort of taking the romance out of it a little bit. I understood that the black pages seemed to represent when they were alone or when they were depicted, and it really did enhance the strength of the use of light. So I really enjoyed those pages. It was just understanding how they flowed. This page here, I felt incredibly successful and sophisticated use of colour and energy, and the sense of love between the couple is very striking. Where I marked it down was in the engagement area. The scene setting was beautiful and romantic, and the use of the focus. It felt like the awakening of a day, and then it went to this really bright sun. If we go from this page and then over Jan, and then it's just beautiful, this feeling. And then the next image, going to that, it was like, oh, I felt a bit taken aback. I wanted to be taken a little bit more gently into this. And as we go through maybe the next one here, not this one, this would have been more gentle going into something like that. This here, I was upset by his arm hanging there, and there's another one that it feels quite disconnected, whereas this beautiful connection here, and it wasn't carried through in some of the posed works where we felt that real strength, and that the face here is absolutely magic, but the one on the left, his arm is hanging down and it doesn't feel that there's a connection. I'm absolutely happy to come up. I think that I have been too harsh where I stand, and it is a beautiful heirloom.
Thanks very much for those comments, Catherine. Nathan, you can just finish the discussion. Can I just remind you that every judge gets to talk to the image. There's no right of reply to the challenger because it was an automatic challenge. Nathan, you scored this as a silver award as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Everyone has commented on the art of this album, and I completely agree. It is very much art. It's beautiful, and no qualms at all. It's really funny that the judge right up there in the 90s, or the gold distinction, used the word sombre, because that's the word I'm using as well, and it's why I sat in a strong silver for the art. But if this be an artist that shares their perspective, then I'm feeling sombre as well. I'm feeling dark, weighty pages and a disconnection, even in the couples, even in their pre-wedding shoot. I'm feeling this lack of the love story, and I'm appreciating every single shot of the cinema, of the art. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm just acknowledging the distance. And for me, I get excited about love stories and wedding days, and so I might be skewed towards that. So I'll just drop that elephant in the room. Eye contact. The first eye contact shot is when they finish the reception and they're running away from the people. They look at each other. The next eye contact shot is the very last shot of the night when they're not kissing. I think they're possibly looking into each other's eyes. Otherwise, they're actually kissing, then their eyes are shut. That is the only set of eye contact. Otherwise, somebody's looking at somebody and they're looking away. They're posing and they're looking away. They're missing each other's faces. Which for me freezes them. It freezes them away from each other in a beautiful art shot, but it doesn't tell me about connection and love story. The only eye contact we have with the camera is once by the groom, and otherwise it's the kids. We've got a set of speeches there, but sorry, I'm jumping to storytelling, but preceding a set of speeches, it's kind of nice to have the story, the person speaking, so we can see the responses. What we have is a line of responses. That cry there on the cake, that's the first exclamation of joy, really, except when they were running out of the ceremony, maybe. But otherwise, there's this feeling of, like, it's not darkness, but it's just kind of this somber, and I know it could be tradition and respect. I'm appreciating both sides of this thing. But I'm applauding the photographer for art, but in terms of love, I'm seeing a cinematic, distant documentary style as opposed to an intimate love story. And there's credit to both sides for that, but that's why I sat on a strong silver but not a gold.
Thanks for those comments, Nathan. So judges, we'll rescore this. It was an automatic challenge, so all judges have the right to rescore. Currently sits on a majority 84. Thank you, judges. The printer score is 89, a solid silver distinction. This book will be reviewed because it's sitting on the cusp of a gold award. So just before we do that, okay. So just before we do that, I'll just let you know that that's the end of the judging of the albums for the Australian Album of the Year at this year's APPA. This category has been proudly sponsored by Memento Pro, long-term sponsor of the AIPP. Memento Pro have a stand here, and as you heard in the announcements during the break, there are some crazy trade offers out there today. So 50% off a studio display album, a $30 Swatch box deal, and a $500 voucher competition. So go and see Libby at Memento Pro. And once again, thanks to Memento Pro for all their work in supporting this judging today. So judges, thank you very much for that.
What about we just hold up a 90 and 89?
So judges, we have one review to do, which was the final album that was judged. The print score was 89 by majority. Do you want it to stay? Do you want this to go to a gold award? The book stays at silver distinction at 89. Thank you, judges. So thank you, judges, for your work there. Thanks to Jan for print handling. Thanks to Sue for scribing, and thanks for Dan for the live stream.